Hi, and welcome to this video outlining the changes that have happened in LiquidFiles version 3.7. The first thing I wanted to talk about is email aliases or secure message aliases. It's a fairly common request that users have the need to send as or receive secure messages for another user. And in LiquidFiles version 3.7, that capability has now been added. So it could be something like a secretary that has that capability of sending messages as her boss, or a support group that all need access to the same generic support email. So let's use that as an example for this test or for this demonstration. So we go to the configuration or the account settings, and we can add aliases here. So we can add either a recipient alias, sender alias, or both. So recipient alias, that means that if a secure message is sent to this recipient, it will also show up in this user's inbox. If a sender alias has been added, it means that this user has the capability of sending emails, sending secure messages as this user. So let's say support@liquidftest.com has the ability to both send and receive messages as this user. And if we look at this message, we can see that an email has been sent to support@liquidftest.com that's saying that user at liquidftest.com has requested the permission to send and receive messages as this alias address, and the alias address is support@liquidftest.com. So if we agree to this, we click on this confirm. So in this case, we just copy this message, copy this link, and we can say thanks for confirming. And now we can see that support@liquidftest.com has been added both as a sender and a receiver. And we can set the default now. We can now set a default sender alias. So if we want to default to send as user at liquidftest.com our own message, our own email, or if we want to send on default as secured@liquidftest.com. In this case, let's not change the default, and then just go to the compose page, where we now have a drop-down menu where we can see we can either send these as user@liquidftest.com or support@liquidftest.com. So let's send a message as support@liquidftest.com. And we're sending this to user@external.com. Please see the supporting documents. Secure message. And let's just send this as a private message, so we don't need to add any files for this test. And we click send. So this message has now been sent. And if we look in the email, we can now see that there is an email. This, by the way, this application is like a developer tool that just captures all emails in and out of a system. So in this case, we can see everything that's going on. So we can see that there's a message that has been sent from support@liquidftest.com, and it's been sent to user@external.com. Please see the supporting documents, and this is a secure private message. You can also see now that the design and layout of these emails have changed in LiquidFiles version 3.7 as well, but we'll cover that in a little while. So that was sending as another user. As the next, to look at how this works in reverse. So when we are receiving, let's begin by logging out from this system, and then we can open this message URL, or we can. This is the same as clicking here. So we'll just open this link, and in this case we'll log on as user@external.com. The token has been sent. We copy this token, and now we're logged on. You can also see that this is another layout that has changed. And just for testing purposes now, let's reply to this message. So this is now a message that's going from user@external.com to support@liquidfs.com, and we see test reply. Hit send. Message be sent, and we're logging on this user. In email, what's happened is that we have a read receipt that has been sent from support@liquidfs.com to user@liquidfs.com saying that this message has been read, and we've also have received this secure message, and this has been sent now from user@external.com, and it's been sent to support@liquidfs.com. So when we try to access this message now, let's log on as user@liquidfs.com. And we can now see that we have access to this message. So we are logged on as user@liquidfs.com, and we can see this message that was sent to support@liquidfs.com because we have an alias that has been the email address that has been created. Now you may look at this and say, all right, well, that's pretty cumbersome to having to add all of that to all users, and that's when users create this themselves. They have to go through this sort of email loop. But when logged on as an admin, we can go into a user and manually add sender and recipient aliases without any email confirmation. So an admin or user admin can add these sender and recipient aliases. And there's also the configuration if we have an LDAP server configured. In this case, we don't have an LDAP server, but there's also now attributes for sender and recipient alias attributes from LDAP. So if you configure this in your LDAP directory, you can now grab those directly from LDAP, and it will be updated when the user logs on. So that's email or secure message aliases, both sender and receiver. Continuing with email and looking at the new email design in LiquidFiles version 3.7, you can see the new design to the left and the old design to the right. And you can see that the left one, it looks a bit more polished, a little bit more modern, and while that's important in itself, another even more important change is that the left one uses a email design library that is designed to mimic the Bootstrap interface that we're using on the web interface, but it also tested against various email clients. So regardless if the recipient is using Outlook or Office 365 or Gmail or whatever they're using, it's a much better chance that the email will look as intended on the left-hand side. Further email changes can be seen in the email configuration. Here we have the email configuration page, and you can see that there is now we have added what we call an email sender address policy, and let's just put in a username at as an example here, so we get access to all the options here. And before we had effectively the specified address only or use email sender address for the system emails only. as these were the only two options, and we felt it was a bit too constrained. So we added the first one, email relay username, and that's mostly to make it easy to configure if you're using, say, Office 365 or Gmail to relay emails. You really have to use this option. You can, I mean, this is effectively the same as setting specified address only and making these two addresses the same, but by using the email relay username, it makes it clearer, and then that disables this function, and this is the email address that will be used for all emails when sending. We have also added this, which is going to be very important, we feel, and that is local domain emails use their own addresses. So this is a sort of in between. This is really hard to do these days, to just send the real email address to wherever it's supposed to go, or from wherever. It's really hard with all the anti-spam protection these days. It's unless you run your own email server and can disable a lot of those checks when emails are sent from the LiquidFiles system, you won't be able to use this. And almost everyone ended up using the email sender address only. But with this one, if you have a more flexible email relay service, or even if you configure your own, then you can say that for my local domain emails, we will use their own addresses, so your own local users the emails will come from them, and for all other addresses or all external users, we're using the email sender address. We'll use this as the actual from address. So that's now a middle ground that when using, so we've tested this and this works great with email services like Amazon Simple Email Service, SES, SMTP2Go, or similar dedicated email relay services. To finalize this presentation, I wanted to talk about the Outlook plugin, and specifically authenticating the Outlook plugin against LiquidFiles version 3.7. Now, this requires also the latest Outlook plugin to work. So what we've done, previously, we had a simple username and password authentication mechanism, and that worked well, but we've also felt that we wanted to make that better. We wanted to add support for things like two-factor authentication. And the options really were to implement or come up with our own API calls, but they would be different depending on if we're using SMS or the time-based authentication or duo authentication, and we would have to come up with all sorts of interface elements. So instead, we added a web-based interface. So we're launching effectively like a small web browser that we're authenticating the Outlook plugin with, and that will then enable us to reuse all the logic that we've already implemented on the web interface and use that in the Outlook plugin. And this will also make it then much, much better for the future, as anything we add, it will automatically change for the Outlook plugin. So the way that this looks is that we just authenticate them as we were before, adding, now we're entering your LiquidFile system, in this case a test system that we're having, click connect and then log in. And you saw you have a login with SAML, and we'll look at that in a second. And now we just enter, you see this is a standard web interface, we just enter a username and password and click login, and we are authenticated. But at this point, we could just as easily have been prompted to also have enter a second authentication of some sort, and that's what makes it easier and implement that way. And here's the other example. We are now going to the same place, entering the LiquidFile system's hostname or URL, click connect, and in this case we are going to click log on with SAML. So this will now open a browser window, and we can see we're opening this browser window in the background, and that's because if the user has already been authenticated in their main browser, we just keep using that authentication, and if they're already logged on, they would just be automatically authenticated, and the authentication would continue. In this case, we have to log on to the SAML server. In this case, we're using one logon as a test system, and then we'll be redirected back. The authentication is successful, and the Outlook plugin is now authenticated, and you can see the smaller window has been removed. Now, there are quite a few other features that have been updated, and I'll just touch briefly that the HTML editor has been updated, and we've simplified it, removed formatting options that couldn't be rendered reliably across emails and web, and added a few things like undo and redo. There's also a more robust cleaning function, so when pasting messages that has been written in Microsoft Word and similar, it should now render better in the LiquidFiles HTML editor. Hope you enjoyed this presentation of LiquidFiles version 3.7, and we'll hope that you will enjoy this release. Thank you.